Hey, thank you for tuning in. This is Expanded Knowledge. My name's Anthony, and I am going to be trying to do sort of like just a quick update every 2 weeks, more or less, and what I'll call the every other week review. And basically, I try to keep up on things and I try to bookmark interesting developments. So really, this will just be a space where I can share some of those, and maybe it'll help you as you are also just seeing things pop up. We're all busy day to day, so I want to just share some of the developments in the world of kind of alternative reality, if you will. A lot of what now currently September 2023, the UFO phenomena is the UAP phenomena is really of importance. And of course, there's some other things going on this week that are of note last couple weeks. So first off, we did have the Mexican Congress holding its own UAP hearing, much the same as the U.S. Congress did. So this was an official government hearing. And of course, now I haven't read and researched everything that was shared at that hearing, which would be interesting because everybody's obviously talking about the two alleged alien bodies that were revealed. Now, of course, super interesting. So far, there hasn't been much said about it other than just as of yesterday, there were the medical personnel. It was taken to some sort of official hospital. It was videotaped, and some sort of official entity put them through an X-ray, and I believe they did an MRI or a CAT scan. And their findings so far was that this was not assembled, whatever this is. It is some sort of single skeleton. Now, I don't know where it goes next. Do they verify that it's actually real bone of something that was a living creature? And then at that point, I'm sure the determination will be, what is it? Is it a deformed human, or who knows? Now, we don't have much about this now. Of note, I will say, if you are aware of the Gaia network, which I just recently did a 1 week trial because I wanted to watch a couple of documentaries there. They have a whole documentary about the Nazca mummies, or they're not mummies, but the Nazca alien bodies, alleged alien bodies, that this Mexican UFO researcher Jaime Mosbaum, I forget his full name, Mossum or something. The whole story is there, and so it'd be interesting now that that's sort of broken as this huge news. Now, are they real or not? I guess we're gonna find out. I don't know where it's gonna go from here, but of course that's just of note. My own personal speculation is that if they are real, then this would be something that was sort of allowed to move forward because it's kind of a drip drip soft disclosure. Of course, it's much more digestible. What are the key things of this finding? They're 1,000 years old, and they're tiny, and they're dead. So it's like very easy way to break it to the public, like, oh wow, these things were here 1,000 years ago, distant enough that we don't need to be worried. We can have that layer of removal and be like, okay, really. But then, and they're super small, they look harmless, like, what are they going to do to us? So it could be a calculated move by, maybe if there is some apparatus behind this all that has agreed that some kind of disclosure is going to start now, it would make sense. And I also think, on that same note, it would be an easy way to, like, verify and, like, break it to people, like, hit the reality, like, aliens are real, people. Extraterrestrials or other types of beings are real, because in this case they could this is hard evidence. So they could do a DNA test, they could have it cross-examined, and then come to the conclusion, say, okay, this is not a human being, it's some sort of intelligent humanoid bipedal type of creature that apparently was on Earth 1,000 years ago and died. And people are going to have to digest that. There's no more debate anymore. There's no more of this ongoing debate of, is it real? Is it just all, imagination or manipulation by one or the other? So it makes sense in that sense. We'll see what happens, but certainly that's a big development, and we're kind of waiting to see what gets determined there. Also, I did a video about the where I touched briefly on that the Congress, led by Tim Burchett and a group of other congressmen and women, wrote a letter to the Inspector General of Intelligence asking him to provide the information that David Grush submitted to him, and they got that response on time from when they requested, which was September 15th, 6 days ago. You can read that, although it won't be easily found on a YouTube search. You actually need to find it on people kind of on a Reddit thread, actually, or on the Twitter or X, whatever it's called now, of Tim Burchett. He posted sort of like a screenshot or a document and of the response from Mannheim to him, and you can read the language of it, put very officially and all that. But essentially, what it says is that they are not required to provide that information to Congress members unless they have a need to know. Essentially, is kind of, that's not the exact wording there, but that's the takeaway. Basically, that unless there's a predetermined in the code book, in the law, of a reason that they would need to give those details to regular Congress people and not sort of like the Intelligence Committee of Congress, then that's just not something that they're going to do. So in other words, wasn't going to happen. The other piece was Bonham said that the Department of Defense Intelligence has not, Inspector General office has not done any investigating of the evidence David Grush gave them. In other words, they haven't taken any action on it. Even though he marked it credible and urgent, they haven't investigated anything. And that was the piece that Tim Burchett responded to in his Twitter post. He said, they haven't looked into anything, David Grush said. This is a cover-up. And he may be right. I mean, there's got to be something being covered up. And hopefully we'll get to the bottom of it soon. In other news, there was a CIA whistleblower who came out in the last week or so. And his claim, which he has also gone through the whistleblower protection system that's been put in place now, and he's working with some Congress members. And his claim is that when COVID was happening, the CIA had a discovery team that was going out to tasked with finding out where did this come from. And there was 11 of them, and 6 of those 11 had, through their investigation, come to the conclusion that it came from a lab in Wuhan, China. And the whistleblower's claims are that these 6 individuals were paid by someone or persons within the CIA to change their story and to not say that it was from the lab in Wuhan anymore. Those are his claims. Interesting. The post-COVID investigation is sort of carrying on, where we are starting to get bits and pieces of maybe some corruption, maybe some things that were going on in this moment in history that's just a few years ago, but was a big change for society for a little while there. It was a weird time. And in other news, we have a very interesting development and a potential move of censorship, blatant censorship, potentially against Russel Brand. Now, if you're not familiar with Russel Brand, he has been, um, prominent. He has been prodigious on YouTube, putting out multiple videos every day, and he's got a team there that's doing the research. They're pulling facts, statistics, articles. He's making his arguments. It's all based on facts, and then he's giving his own take on it, but he's also showing the facts to viewers and pointing out a lot of things, a lot of the corruptions and scandals, and a lot of the um, hypocrisy, and just all these issues that the media, the mainstream media, is not covering. They're not exposing, which alternate media outlets, which are ostensibly on the rise to some degree, which is good. But Russell Brand was kind of a player in that, having his own channel and having a big following. And essentially, if you haven't heard, um, he had sexual rape allegations against him, and that came out, and now we'll see where that goes. The thing with this is that now, granted, maybe he really is guilty. He has denied it and said that he fully denies all allegations. Maybe he did do it, and that's a whole nother story. And but it's kind of something we need to think about and talk about, because you could just be anybody. If you have a high profile, you're a celebrity, you could be completely innocent, and unfounded claims could just come against you of sexual abuse, rape, whatever it might be. And just by those claims being filed, um, he's being deplatformed now. He's lost his YouTube monetization. He's being smeared, of course, in media outlets, and in journals and news outlets, and articles, of course. But people are kind of discussing if it's right for YouTube to demonetize him instantly like that. And now what currently um, the UK government is sort of putting some pressure on Rumble to do something about it. Now, the issue here is we don't know if these claims are completely unfounded, and it would not be so far-fetched and wild to think that, especially given the kinds of bold things that he says on his channel and the types of high-level power people that he exposes. If you look at the last few videos before this happened, I mean, he's literally arguing that Obama's a war criminal. He's arguing about Bill Gates, and exposing things that Bill Gates does that makes him look really bad. These are all people at the top circles, and those are just a couple examples. You could look at any number of videos of his, and they're all very critical of the elite, critical of the establishment, but actually in a compelling way. He's really presenting the facts and the evidence where it's like, oh, damn, like, that's crazy. I need to think about that now. And they don't like that. Of course, I wouldn't think that they like that. We could see this very plausibly being a very easy way to silence him. Get him out. He's exposing us. He's got a big following. He's a popular celebrity. Shut him up. He's not playing ball. What's the easiest way to do it? Sexual allegations. It doesn't matter if you're innocent. It immediately tarnishes you. And it forever tarnishes you, because even if you win the court case, there's always going to be the people that say, oh, man, I don't know. I think he was guilty. If people claim that there's a reason, and you're also going to have certain influential people and outlets and platforms that are just not going to want to associate with it. It's a tarnish. Even if he's found innocent, it's like, damn, yeah, he got rape, sexual allegations on him, like, he'll never be the same again. His credibility will never be the same again, even if every sexual thing that he ever did was consensual, which he claims. This is enough of a smear, enough of a tarnish on him to take his influence down, and potentially, if the allegations can actually be somehow proven, if it goes the wrong way and maybe he's even guilty, and though he might be innocent, then of course he's permanently silenced. But it's effective in the short term, and it's effective long term too, because people won't want to touch him anymore. It's something that probably exists, and certainly is something that's being debated, and we'll see how that develops. So, and that's unfortunate for him. I mean, if he's guilty, that's obviously, it would not don't condone any kind of behavior or treatment of anyone like that. So I think that's really bad. But we don't know if he's guilty or not. Literally, anyone can make a claim against you, especially if you are a high-profile celebrity like him. It's just a shame because his content is very good. It's very high quality, and it's very supported by statistics, information, and I think his message overall is a good one. It's about people coming together on all sides and really looking at what's the common issue here, and what's wrong with our society. What can we do about it? Exposing the points that we need to look at. So it's kind of like a bit of a loss for us here in the alternative, rising up against the system that is keeping us all down movement, for lack of a better term. Because I feel like he was doing a really good thing. Of course, I don't know if he's really guilty of those things, then that is not a good thing. But he claims he's not, and we'll see how that develops. In the time being, he's been silenced. On another side note, this is just a quick one, just to keep up with the David Grush story. He did do another interview on a channel, Jesse Michaels, who has a pretty big following. I guess, they managed to get David Grush to come hang out with them for a few days and talk about all this stuff. And it's certainly interesting. I plan to hopefully make a video just on that interview, because again, just like with all these things, he's not saying anything monumentally new, but if you read between the lines, and there's some nuanced in exchanges, and there's some moments where questions are kind of skipped over a little bit. So I bookmarked a couple things on that interview. You could check it out yourself. I think it's like an hour or two long. But it does give some more insight into this whole story of the David Grush thing. The last piece that I want to touch on is the NASA report, and I'll try to just summarize it here. I do have, about a page of notes on it, and thought about maybe doing a video into it, but I mean, it's just, there's not much there, but you can kind of read into it a little bit. So let's run through it here. The NASA report. First of all, it's important to remember NASA has only been studying non-classified material. They haven't been given any of the classified data. And, a lot of the report is just jargon, fluff. It's talking about setting up methods to get better data, making a valid point that all the data they have is just by chance. They're not focusing on let's get data and study UAP. So they say they're going to, and we'll need funding for that. And that's fair enough. Now, bear with me a minute here as I just try to skim through my notes here and highlight to you anything that's really of interest. Now, this report was only 39 pages or something like that, 34 pages. It's like a year and a half. Anyway, it wasn't very too enlightening. I found this part kind of interesting. On page 25, they say, In the search for life beyond Earth, extraterrestrial life itself must be the hypothesis of last resort, the answer we turn to only after ruling out all other possibilities. They're basically saying, like, they don't, we shouldn't, think, it will be a last resort hypothesis. And then they go on to say, as Sherlock Holmes said, once you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, no matter how improbable, must be the truth. I just thought it was kind of weird that, like, NASA in this official UAP report is quoting a fictional mystery book character. It's just like, I would never do that if I was writing this report, but, like, there's no validity to quoting Sherlock Holmes. Anyway, they're very careful with their words. We could see here also on page 25, to date, in the peer-reviewed scientific literature, there is no conclusive evidence suggesting an extraterrestrial origin for UAP. Of course there's not. There is basically no peer-reviewed scientific literature about extraterrestrial origin of UAP. But does NASA know that there is conclusive evidence that suggests an extraterrestrial origin of UAP, but it's just not in the peer-reviewed scientific literature? We've seen a lot of this. It's very careful wording without revealing anything. And here was just a bit of interesting of recent kind of data. And for example, between March 5th, 2021 and August 30th, 2022, the Department of Defense received a total of 247 new UAP reports. However, in just the previous 17 years, only 263 reports have been filed. So they're kind of just, I thought that was just an interesting little fact that there was the same number of reports in a year than there had been in the 17 years prior. Page 27, interesting tidbit. Study team members also noted firsthand knowledge of colleagues who were warned to stay away from research in areas like extraterrestrial technosignatures, which could damage their scientific credibility and promotion potential. So, interesting. Who was warning them and why? Something to think about. There's a photo on page 28 that is kind of just ridiculous. I think that they chose that photo to show in this one report. It's like, you can't see anything. There's so much more better footage that's been verified to be an actual authentic UAP sighting, like the gimbal video. Why not show a close-up zoom in of the gimbal video? It's like, what is that picture on 28? Weird. They make an interesting point on page 31, basically saying that this argument that maybe going to an area that doesn't have a lot of noise around it in terms of other things happening in the skies or energetically, radar, whatever it might be, that would sort of tarnish an attempt of NASA to really study what the UAP phenomena is. So they're suggesting maybe going somewhere with a lower background noise such as above the South Pole. My own thought on that was, interesting. I wonder what they could possibly be finding down there, given some of the rumors that we've heard about what's going on in the South Pole. And yeah, moving along here, not much to really get from this report, to be quite honest. And page 33, they make it straightforward. At this point, there is no reason to conclude that existing UAP reports have an extraterrestrial source. However, if we acknowledge that as one possibility, then those objects must have traveled through our solar system to get here. Yeah, I mean, to their credit, they're saying that it's plausible, and there would need to be some type of techno signature that they could pick up on. And yeah, so lastly, that's it. And some people have also highlighted that NASA announced that they've found evidence of life on a planet that's 120 million light years away. It's supposed to be, I think it was 8 times the size of Earth. I might be wrong with that number, but it's multiples bigger than Earth. And that's kind of interesting. What is that? Is it authentic? Is it maybe part of the drip disclosure? Like, oh, okay, all right. The NASA says there might be a planet with life on it that's like Earth, and it's really far away. It's okay. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I just try to keep up with some of these developments and, just share some of my thoughts here. So that's going to bring it to a close for today. Hopefully there was some value in this for you. I'm still working on hopefully getting my analysis of the July 26 UAP hearing, which I think it's still important to look at that, even though it's kind of like old news at this point. That's going to live on as a historical moment, I think, and we can still pick apart some things there in terms of everyone who spoke and who was involved. And so I'm also working on some papers that I'm writing now, and working on organizing my website to start releasing some of my papers and my research. And we'll be working on a video about some research into psychic abilities of humans and some of the interesting CIA documents that I came across, and kind of went down a trail to some of the studies done in China about in the late 1980s and the conclusions that they came to that the CIA was aware of. So hopefully that'll be coming out soon. Thank you for watching. I hope that this give you some kind of interest in your own journey towards trying to keep up on what might really be going on here for us common folk in the public here who are not in the high levels of secretive intelligence agencies of the institutions in the military-industrial complex. So have a great weekend, and I will hopefully see you sometime next week. Peace.